Hi, this is Lisa Graves with Court Accountability Action, and I'm here on the Midas Touch Network on Legal AF to talk with Lauren Kurtz, who works for the Climate Science Legal Defense Fund. She is here to tell us a little bit more about the disinformation campaigns that are going on that have really been targeting the really solid climate change science that's been growing and showing what's happening. And also, she has some ideas about how how these opponents of legitimate science are cherry picking data in order to make bad faith arguments, in order to sow seeds of doubt, like the Merchants of Doubt, one of the great documentaries from a few years ago. So Lauren, welcome to the show for part 2 of our conversation. Can you tell us what you've been doing in response to some of the disinformation around climate change that's going on, and other thoughts you have about this really, really important issue?
Thank you. Yeah, it's obviously a big, almost intractable issue. If it was easy to solve, I'd like to think that it would already be solved. But, we are trying to tackle it in the ways we can. One of the things that we're doing is we co-run the Silencing Science Tracker with our colleagues at the Sabin Center. We have been cataloging all of the anti-science actions at the government level. We are at, as of September 2025, I think almost 700 entries. The first year that we did this, in the first Trump administration, I think we had 91 entries total. So
is that 700 cumulative, or is that just for this year?
It's cumulative. I think right now in the second Trump administration, 7.5 months in, we have 91 entries.
Wow.
So to be fair, the first Trump administration, they picked up the pace in the first administration. The Biden administration was not perfect. Second Trump administration is going full steam ahead, and we also have a number of state and local government entries in there as well. But it's a significant number overall.
It really is. Can you tell us about that partnership that you have, and like how people can find out information about, how people can find your tracker?
Yeah, exactly. So right now, as of September 2020, we're actually moving it to a new URL. So I would just say for the moment, it will eventually be on silencingscience.org. But for right now, you can just Google it. It's housed on the Columbia Law website. We're moving it to its own domain to get more functionality, because I think it's a really valuable resource to really see the extent to which government efforts to silence and misrepresent research are happening. In some ways, I think it doesn't fully capture what's going on because, as discussed in part 1, the second Trump administration is being much more aggressive. And so a single entry these days does not really correlate with what was a single entry in the first Trump administration. Now we have entries about them, firing thousands of workers at a time. And the first Trump administration was like, oh, these scientists can't go to this important conference, which is, was also bad, but not necessarily the same scale.
I was going to say I had a disagreement at one point with PolitiFact, because I said that, the PolitiFact, did a politician lie about a budget figure is one thing, or did they lie about going, a rationale to go to war in Iraq is another thing, and that the PolitiFact scale is binary in that way and doesn't have magnitude. And so I can definitely see how in this instance, where you have a single entry for attacking science or silencing science, it could include it affect thousands of people directly, thousands of scientists, for example, or hundreds of scientists, and then obviously thousands and thousands of people based on, what science has been silenced or that they're attempting to silence. So I wonder if in future iterations you might have some additional way to flag magnitude.
Yeah. No, it's a work in progress constantly. But we are trying to put a spotlight on these issues. We're trying to help scientists fight back. We are lawyers, so I'm not going to get into things that are confidential. But, we've had scientists come to us who have been terminated, who have been facing grant removals. Sometimes it's more appropriate for us to refer them to another group that's more specialized. But, giving them an opportunity to go to the courts, which in and of themselves are flawed as well. But, it's an avenue that I think is at least an important one. And we're trying to help scientists understand their rights. We're trying to help scientists understand the First Amendment rights, which we discussed in part 1 as being one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most valuable ways to, contest what's happening these days. And, we're all in this together.
Yeah, we're
If it
in
was
this
easy to
together.
solve, we would have already tackled it, but we take it one day at a time.
So from this work, this collaborative work, and the efforts to really shine a light on what's happening, are there any? I want to end again on a positive note, if you can. Are there any things that give you hope right now in this part of the work that you're doing? Do you think that ultimately science will be more resilient because of these attacks? Not that I condone them, but like, is it possible that rather than ultimately weakening the scientific community, that it strengthens them by, creating a real need to be in greater alliance with each other than maybe they would ordinarily be? Or are there other reasons or things to be hopeful about?
Sure. I mean, this is a blow, no doubt about it. Or many blows, more accurately. But I do think you're right that this is also an opportunity for strengthening. I have seen a lot of the climate science community coordinating with folks in the public health community and trading lessons learned. I mean, the climate community has been under fire for years and years, decades, really. Like I said before, we were founded in 2011, so this is not a new issue for the climate science community. For the public health community, they were not experiencing remotely what they're experiencing now in the first Trump administration. And so I think there are lessons learned to impart on them. I think there are more collaborations happening. I mean, public health and climate change are also inextricably linked on a number of levels. So that is cool to see. And I should say, I mean, I'm not a fan of what's happening at all, but there are some valid critiques. And there are some opportunities for change. And this is one of the more destructive ways to get there. But I do think that there are some opportunities for improving the way science is conducted and the way that government science is run. Long term, I do have optimism that cooler heads will prevail. I've been heartened by, going back to our Silencing Science tracker, the number of journalists and policymakers who have reached out trying to understand the scope of the scope of the problem, which I think is a fundamental part of figuring out solutions. So just, helping establish a roadmap, even if it's just the early days, I think will ultimately get us to a better place.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.